and welcome. You're watching The Social Network. I'm Rishika Barwa. On the show tonight, we will decode the online right-wing hate ecosystem, a debate that is now popularly being known as trads versus Raitas. Who are trads? Who are Raitas? Why are they on your timeline and what does it mean? We'll decode this right-wing hate ecosystem. Also on the show, we'll talk about the pushback, social justice being sought on social media, how the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe communities are fighting prejudice and raising awareness about their issues. That's going to be our second focus story. But first, our top story tonight. After the Bulli Bai Sulli deals cases, once again, the spotlight is back on the right-wing hate ecosystem online. But right-wing hate online is not a monolith. It's not just one group. But in fact, there are two very distinct alt-right groups that have emerged between 2014 and 2016 after the Narendra Modi government came to power. These fault lines in the Hindu right-wing system have been highlighted over several instances in the last few years, with the Bulli Bai case being the most recent one. This, remember, was when on January the 1st, there was an auction that was carried out, a fake auction that was carried out of Muslim women on the Bulli Bai app. Now, all those who were arrested in the Bulli Bai case and in the Sulli deals case are known as trads or traditionalists. Now, those opposing them, also from the right wing, are known as Raitas, just like the popular Indian dish. So, on the show, we look at decoding this toxic right-wing hate online, the trads versus the Raitas. Who are they? Who do they target? How can you identify them and how do they differ from each other? So, who are trads? Trads are traditionalists. They are far-right upper caste Hindus typically. They are also against the Hindu ideology that is propagated by the RSS or the BJP. They openly disagree, in fact, with the BJP's version of Hindutva. They even attack the BJP, they even attack the Prime Minister for being soft on Muslims and minorities. They've also attacked the Prime Minister for his caste. They attack the Prime Minister every time he extends online greetings to Muslims on the occasion of Eid or Christians on the occasion of any of their festivals. They openly call for genocide of Muslims, of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, of homosexuals. Who are they? Well, typically they are in the age group of 18 to 25 and, like I said, they are upper caste Hindus. So, that's a little bit about who trads are. Now, who are Raitas? Raitas are, well, considered moderates. They are even considered liberals by trads. They believe in the RSS and BJP's ideology of Hindutva. They don't believe in caste supremacy. And like I said, they are considered the liberals by the trads. Now, how can you recognize the trads? That's really important. How do you identify these people on your timeline? Well, according to a report published in The Wire, profile photos are usually furious pictures of Hindu gods. Trads openly glorify sati. They propose open defecation. They are against toilets. They are also big supporters of caste slavery. Now, a lot of the things that trads actually talk about and write, we can't even put on our screens to show you, but we'll give you some kind of a sneak peek onto what those pages look like. They openly propagate genocide of Muslims. They propagate rape. They propagate the genocide of SC/ST communities. They target the BJP for disowning the likes of Nathuram Godse. They adopt icons like the Jamia Millia shooter. They applauded his actions when that happened. Yati Narasimhanand is lately the person that they are in favor of online after the Haridwar hate speech. They openly call for physical violence, and this is extremely worrying. There are groups on Telegram that openly call for physical violence, for purchasing weaponry and arms, arming Hindus to fight, well, the Muslim communities, minorities, and even the homosexuals. Now, where exactly are the fault lines between the trads and the Raitas highlighted? There are a couple of instances where these two groups have openly sort of sparred with each other online. The post-poll violence in West Bengal was one of the instances, the repeal of farm laws by the BJP government, the most recent, of course, being the Sulli deals, Bulli Bai auction apps. And like I said, every time the Prime Minister extends even, greetings on non-Hindu festivals, it becomes an issue of debate between the trads and the Raitas. Now, to further decode this hate ecosystem, I have with me two journalists from The Wire who've been covering this entire story. They've been looking at these Telegram channels, these Twitter handles, who these people are, how they operate, how they've grown. Alishan Jafri, journalist with The Wire, and Naomi Barton are both with us. Thank you both very much for being with us. Also, someone who's looked at this ecosystem and understands who these people are in a certain sense is Prateek Sinha, the co-founder of Vault News. He's also with us. And to make sense of what this means in a socio-political context, we have Professor Apurva Nand. He's a professor of the Delhi University also with us. Thank you all very much for joining us on the social network tonight. Alishan, I want to begin by asking you, who are trads?
I mean, if I have to define trads, as you said, they are the traditionalists and they don't believe in the idea of a democratic society. They think that India should be converted into a Hindu theocratic state. And as some people, in the introduction, you were talking about how Raitas do not believe in caste supremacy, and how I think that is a conundrum that the right wing and the RSS is dealing with. And in my opinion, they are both the same side, I mean, two sides of the same coin. Trads basically believe that India should function on the basis of caste system, where caste system by birth, and that Brahmins, that there should be Brahmin supremacy in the society. They also, I mean, the kind of hatred, it's an organic movement. It is not something which is being monitored or controlled remotely. It is something which has grown organically. People associate because of hate, and people hate those who hate less than them. For example, there are many instances where they have attacked right-wing women, right-wing Hindu women, and because they consider their stance on certain issues to be too soft. Apart from that, I think that trads have adopted a lot from the neo-Nazi groups in Europe and also in America. They have taken these memes and these meme characters like Pepe the Frog or the Doge meme and many other memes. So what they're now doing is that they're making violence as very funny and genocide as a pop culture for a lot of young educated Hindus who fall in the group of 18 to 25, specifically Hindus coming mostly from upper caste communities. And they're educated Hindus. They're unlike those whom we see on the streets as a part of organized lynch mob or something like that. So they are an army of lone wolves who have formed a subculture within the larger Hindutva ideology, and that I would say that this is a fallout of the Hindu nationalist project. They want somebody, so it's a bottom-up movement. They do not believe that India, I mean, there should be an organized system of hatred. They believe that everybody, that hatred should be a bottom-up movement where if the leader is going soft, he should be replaced.
Right. Well, I think that's a really good insight into how they think. But the other insight, Naomi, if you can come in here, is into how they operate. You know, it's very interesting to see that this has, of course, happened, you know, between 2014 and 16. You've been observing, Alishan, and you've been observing these groups over a period of time. Take us through how they've proliferated. Has this ecosystem grown? Have the fault lines perhaps only been deepened in a certain sense?
So I think that we've mentioned in our articles that the increase in this particular group has been really evident following the CA-NRC protests and also following the Bengal violence that ended up happening. But what I would say is that this is not something which you can really put an organized timeline on. In the same way, for instance, you can put a timeline on the hate speech increases that happened before the elections. Those are done for purpose. They are done with a specific ideology and execution in mind, whereas what we're looking at over here is a very organic culture. Now, when a culture forms, automatically, it's not because someone has a sort of, you know, like a strategy behind it in terms of increasing it. I would like to add, though, to what Alishan said, that what we're looking at here is something which is a very fluid community. So on one hand, you will have, as you said, a loose ecosystem of lone wolves. On the other hand, this is very much an ecosystem. It feeds into each other. They speak with each other. You have a certain degree of overlap with the political ecosystem. You have a degree of overlap with the Yati Narsinghanand, etc., who we've noted as having like a pretty large political influence as well. And at the same time, our recent today's expose on the wire on tech fog has also, there's a fairly large overlap when it comes to paid trolls from the BJP, or I wouldn't want to say from the BJP, but who have been affiliated with the BJP and who propagate BJP propaganda.
Right.
So in sense, being able to draw really, really clean lines, I don't think, I think it defeats the purpose in terms of what we're trying to do here, which is to get a sense of what this ecosystem looks like and how to actually address it.
Prateek Sinha, what more can you tell us about, the age, the profile? We know broadly 18 to 25, what's the gender categorization? Because from what one has been picking up, it's men and women. But, how do they unite? How do they integrate? What's the sort of MO for them to expand their base when it comes to the trads especially?
Firstly, I would want to sort of refine the definition a bit. We should not just look at it in terms of caste supremacy, etc. If you're saying that, trads believe in caste supremacy, then that would be a wrong thing to say. There's a whole part of India, where Brahmin supremacy is a huge thing. So, and there's obviously lot many in the Raita community also who evidently believe in Brahminical supremacy. They may not always show it, but they do believe it. My understanding of, this sort of ecosystem which has come up is basically, over the last 7-8 years, we have been fed with a steady diet of hate speech and misinformation. And that is bound to have its impact on the society. And the impact that in this case it has had is that it has radicalized various individuals, especially the youth, the 18 to 25 range that you're talking about. And then, you had 2 years of pandemic where we have had young people, look at the age range, 18, 21, 21. These are just sort of in first year, second year of college.
Yes.
Many of them have not gone to colleges. They've been studying from home. And they have had constant access to internet. They've always been on internet. And this is a time when they can absorb as much hate speech as there is out there. So what we are actually seeing is fallout of the Hindutva project, as Alishan referred to, but this is the radicalization that is happening of the Hindu community.
Right.
And this is where it is very dangerous, because if you look at the arrests that have been made, these 5 individuals have never met in real life. One is from Uttar Pradesh, one is from Bangalore,
Yes.
one is from Guwahati, one is from Central India. So these are individuals who are being radicalized because of online hate speech and misinformation, and it is a very, very dangerous trend. We are going towards what America is currently facing, that is highly radicalized individuals.
That's a very important point that you raised. Professor Apurvanand, where is this stemming from, therefore? I think that's the important question. We're putting out the details of the arrests that were made in the Sulli deals and the Bulli Bai auctions. And like Prateek Sinha said, these are people who just meet online. They're from different paths. Sometimes they're not even connected with each other. Where is all of this stemming from? Professor Apurvanand, I think you're on mute. If you could just unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd say that it's part of a larger ecosystem, and it has sustained itself for more than 100 years. And it's based on essentially sexual anxieties in Hindus vis-a-vis Muslims. Because Muslim men are seen as more virile and they are seen as sexually more powerful. So the sexual anxiety that Hindus have been suffering from or has been instilled into them has led to radicalization of Hindus in a way that they think that owning Muslim women or raping them or patronizing them is the only way to get back. So that is what the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh has done.
Right.
And you also have to see hate speeches or other kinds of speeches which I would put in the category of overt speeches by leaders of Bharatiya Janata Party. For example, calling Sonia Gandhi their sea cow, or a friend of Shashi Tharoor as 55 crore ki girlfriend. So these are all putting an element of sexuality or sexualizing violence against Muslims or against opponents of Hindutva project.
Right.
There is a seamlessness. If you look at the age group, there is a seamlessness. Look at the age group of those who are involved in lynching of Pehlu Khan and all other lynchings.
Right.
If you look at the age group, it's between 14 to 25. So I would say that from physical to online, it's a seamless world. It's organic, it's growing. Yes, there is no central command, but the ecosystem that has been created by the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh and Bharatiya Janata Party is responsible for this radicalized online.
You know, that's what's really interesting about this entire consolidation. And, you know, Alishan, if you want to come back in here, you know, very interesting that Professor Apurvanand says that this is just growing like a wildfire organically. There's no chain of command. Can we therefore say that this right-wing distinction that we're seeing between the Chads and the Raitas is something which is just growing organically, or do you think that there is a more concerted propaganda behind it?
I think this is growing organically, but I would just like to carry on from what Professor Apurvanand was speaking. I think this is just a punctuation or a full stop in a sentence which is being spoken by leaders of the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Right.
One part is said by Narendra Modi, the next part is said by Yogi Adityanath, and the next part by people like Narsinghanand.
Yes.
And that is the final full stop on the sentence. So we have to see that when society is being constantly injected with hate, and when our friends say that this hate is just for elections, the hate does not go after the elections.
Yes.
And it's like a car with a driver who's been driving on hate. He's been giving people the drug of hatred. And now that the people are addicted to it, they want more. They want exposure to more brazen sources of hate. And this is what it is.
Okay, but you know, last word, Prateek Sinha, I want to come to you for a very specific question. You know, where this emerges and how far it goes is, of course, you know, something that we still have to wait and watch. But what I want to understand here is that what do you make of the Trads attacking the government, attacking the RSS ideology, attacking the Prime Minister for his caste?
So, you know, I differ with Alishan. That is, it is a full stop. I do think that this is separate from, you know, this is not under political activism. I have followed, you know, sort of political activism of BJP online for the last 4 years, and whenever they have to defend someone of their own, they would. So even Yatin Narsinghanand is their opponent, which is why he hasn't been arrested. But these people who are Trads and did Bulli Bai and Sulli, the political class did get the permission to go ahead and arrest them. My understanding is that you know, even the political class sort of is not okay with what is happening, in the sense that they have no political benefit from saving, you know, those people who are creating this, you know, Bulli Bai app or the app. So, in my opinion, this is an even more dangerous trend where this is not part of sort of organized political activism, but this has gone beyond that.
It's gone beyond.
These are radical. This is radical youth on which even BJP has no control.
Well, it's unspeakable toxic hate, and a lot of, like I said, a lot of what one has seen and read in the last few weeks, just researching on this is absolutely horrifying. We can't even put a lot of that stuff on air. We can't even talk about a lot of the stuff that one has read. But thank you all very much for joining us in this extremely important conversation. This is definitely not the last conversation that we're having about this really important trend online, a trend that we expect to keep discussing going forward as well. So while, of course, you know, we're talking about the perils of the social network, all of this hate that one is seeing on, like, this toxic atmosphere of hate, there's also pushback, right, against hate, against misinformation online. And social media is also a space, and increasingly becoming a space for political discourse for all, because there are no barriers for entry into this space. There are YouTube channels like the National Dastak, like Tathagat Live, with millions of followers that are actually helping SC/ST communities regroup and fight for social justice online. Can you help us make sense of this social justice on social media, the proliferation of channels, of Twitter pages, of smaller apps, which are seeing scheduled caste, scheduled tribe communities, you know, increasingly joining in the narrative against misinformation and also talking about their rights?
I mean, Rishika, we have to understand that traditionally this space of expression, and once the message has been communicated, reception, was really having a wide gap, and that could be applied with the quote-unquote traditional media. With the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and even OBC, we see a kind of a space where you have a direct communication almost within some seconds of message plus delivery and the reception of the audience. And,
right.
And what we see with social media as a masking of a new narrative is that there are counter narratives, and the media, national, international, as well as government sectors have to pay attention to them. They are influencers who kind of penetrate and also proliferate into various channels and streams.
But for the benefit of our audience who hasn't tuned into any of these channels or doesn't follow any of these pages on Twitter, give us a sense of what is the kind of narrative. And also, what's very interesting is to see these smaller apps like Chingari and Moj, which are seeing an increasing number of people from the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe communities joining in to make their voices heard.
Rishika, not only that, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and OBC communities have also started their own app called JBIM app,
yes,
which will have a short segment of your own videos. And you see, this is a fantastical demonstration of what a new and autonomous culture can do. And what are these channels? For example, if I want to take a hold of a situation, what's happening in India, I might just go on Twitter or any of the social media channels and look at one of the media channels that you are very rightly depicting on your screen, or look at the few influencers as to what is their take. So it's almost becoming a translation of what it would mean to look at these narratives through our perspective, because historically, India's narrative has always been Brahminical. Even the people from the progressive leftist or whatever viewpoints have in a way protected. It was a cobweb, but at the end of the day, the stream was Brahminism. It in a way very soft, sometimes hard. This time what we see is, be it celebration of Diwali, be it any celebration, the counterculture, which is basically a mainstream culture, the mainstream culture of what they call Mool Nivasis or the original inhabitants, their idea is, okay, we need to find, okay, this is Diwali. Why is Diwali celebrated? What is it? What is our stake? What's our presence? Okay, Holi is celebrated. What's our stake? And what you will see through this is, especially the young youth who is probably not having access to this material. The literature is vast, right?
Right.
And so then you see there is this tabulation or a thread or a short post where one is apprised of. And what does it do is, it really contributes to a multitude of democracy that is not necessarily nation-state based. Democracy here is basically how we celebrate, how we understand each other, and how we also fight against our enemies, which are basically most often the state in the power.
But you know, while you say the enemy most often is the state, and that might have been so, what do you make of, you know, I don't know if you had a chance to tune into the conversation just before this when we were talking about the trads and the raitas on social media and how you know, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, backward caste communities, minority communities, women are being targeted in the most unspeakable narrative of hate online. Do you believe that the rise of these communities fighting for social justice is also a pushback to this toxic culture of online hate?
Rishika, I'm myself a victim of this. You know, they started a page with my name, extremely abominable on Twitter, and you know, and these are the people who are really, you know, and I really would like to give a shout out to Alicia and Naomi for really bringing up this phenomenal piece. And what would we see with the rise of this Dalit sphere is, these are the people now who basically trend national trends. They kind of create a influential space for us to not only listen to each other, but also have an entire nation paying attention to it, right? Recently, they trended Nation Wants BSP, and it was on the rise. So with the rise of this Bahujan social media sphere, what we could see in a social media army that can counter some of these kids living in urban or any other locations, living under the pallus of mummies and daddies who have nothing else to.
Well,
but these are
it's a pity that Anjul couldn't join us. We had some technical problems there, but thanks very much, Suraj, for joining us and sparing your time. It's indeed being fascinating to sort of look through some of these YouTube channels and Twitter handles and just how informed the narrative really is. Thanks very much for joining us.